Hello, good morning and welcome to this webinar on youth information talking money. My name is Sven Rettoré and I will be your host and moderator for the next 2 hours. We have quite a lot of interesting speakers and we also have a panel debate in the meeting, and I will guide you further, but first, obviously, I would like to give the word to Eva Reina to also welcome you. Eva, I leave the word to you to welcome the people.
Thank you, Sven. Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you on behalf of ERYICA. We are very happy to see that this webinar was interesting to you and that you join us. We will discuss in this event the role of youth information in supporting young people's financial literacy. That's why we are talking about money. And I want to tell you that this event is organized in the framework of the partnership between ERYICA and the Council of Europe that we really cherish. And I want to thank the Council of Europe actually for their trust and for their support in making it possible. And well, about the topic, actually, we found that this was a good topic to discuss, to see the perspective of youth information about it. Because financial literacy is indeed a core life skill for participating in modern society. And we have seen as well through different surveys that young people actually are among those with the lowest financial resilience. And this is a real issue indeed for young people today. And especially, of course, for those already in a vulnerable situation. And yeah, of course, the current cost of living crisis is not really making things easier. It's making it even more important, and these skills become even more needed indeed to adapt our ways of life, the way we manage and we engage with our finances to deal with the situation that we are facing today. Of course, the struggle to make the ends meet, while also not being able to afford things that are basic that older generations hadn't so many issues to afford, like, for instance, buying a property or things like that. It's actually increasingly paying out in politics as well, and is in a way shaping the way young people and younger generations are voting and showing to the polls. And yeah, it's a matter of seeing how this will impact in a longer term our democracies and see how the world will look like in a few years. So yeah, in a way, it's not all about money, but definitely money does matter. And this is what we want to discuss about here, like how does it matter and how we can support indeed young people to make these ends meet. And to give them tips, resources to have this financial literacy. So we hope that the different contributions and discussions that we're going to have here will be useful for you and will be enriching, and they will also inspire you in a way to support young people on your daily work. And I will stop here, enjoy the events, and yeah, see you at the end.
Thank you, Eva, for this short introduction. And welcome to you as well, obviously. We want to start with a small warm-up and to see a little bit, who do we have here in the room right now? And if I can ask my colleague to put on the Mentimeter slides, then we can see the questions that we have for you. Also for the people online, you can also join in. So Isabel, if you can show the QR codes by pressing I, voila, wonderful. You can either go to the Mentimeter by scanning the QR code you see on your screen. If that is not possible, you can also go to menti.com and type in the code 37305842. So either scan the QR code or go to www.menti.com and type in 37305842. And that will bring you to where are you from? And you can tap where you are. I see people popping up in Belgium, in Portugal, in Germany, in the UK, in Ireland, in Latvia, in Norway. I think I see Croatia there as well. Spain is popping up here, Lithuania. And do we have anybody else? If you just joined in, we are doing a Mentimeter on where you are currently, from where are you following this webinar. You can go to menti.com and use the code 37305842. It's on top of your screen. Do we have any more people? I see more people from Belgium appearing. France has appeared. I see Scotland, Wales also popping up. We are currently 33 participants with some panelists as well. So we have 25 answers right now, which is a good overview of where people are from, and that is from the whole of Europe. We have a second question for you. Just moving to the second question. Are you a youth worker / a youth information worker, a teacher, some other youth professional, a policymaker, a civil servant, or maybe something else? Please give your code and tell us where you are based in this field of youth information. We have a lot of youth workers and youth information workers, no surprise there. We also have a teacher here, other youth professionals. We also have some other people that are in the webinar, more teachers popping up, youth workers and youth information workers still going strong. We have 22 people. Who else didn't fill in yet the Mentimeter? Where are you in this field of youth information? We have quite some other people here as well. If you just joined in, you can take part in this Mentimeter by pressing www.menti.com and use the code 37305842. Okay, moving on to the last question we have for you. Well, this is still going up. So maybe let's wait a second. Too late. Sometimes things just move on in life and the opportunity passed by. Last question, how familiar are you with the topic of financial literacy? It's going fast. We already have 10 people voting here. Some people not at all. The majority already has some notion of it, but maybe is eager to learn some more. We do have some people with already quite some knowledge. I'm waiting to see the masters popping up. Maybe they have something to say about this later on. 25 people already took part, and still the people who are in the middle are going strong. 17, the large majority of people already has some notions of this topic, but probably wants to learn more about what is there to learn. It's a relevant topic, especially now. Things are getting tough. There's high prices. It's really a crucial skill to have. So the majority is here with some knowledge, but still eager to learn some more. We can close the Mentimeter share. And as you can see, this is a webinar, so there's no possibility for you to just pop up and ask your question. We do have the possibility to ask questions below on your screen. You will see a button that says Q&A. If you have a question throughout this webinar, you can click that button and you can ask your question. If it's addressed to something specific, or not to something, but to somebody specifically, you can also mention this person's name, so I am able to address it to the right person. It's very possible I will not be able to answer all your questions. That depends on how many there are, but we will do our best to tackle as many as possible. You can do it mentioning your name, but you can also ask your questions anonymously. I think that's it for the practicalities and the intro of this webinar. So let's go to our first speaker, which is Christina Fox. She's a writer at NerdWallet UK, a mother language graduate from the University of Oxford, and she has traded French for finance and now writes on a range of topics, including students' finance and business banking. She has a lot of experience working with young people, most recently as a French tutor and as a student ambassador at the university. Christina, I would very much like to invite you here to show you to our audience and to give us all the relevant and interesting knowledge you have to share. I leave the floor to you and I see you in about 15 minutes.
Fab, thank you so much. Let me just find my presentation. Hopefully everyone can see that okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Fabulous. Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm Christina. I work at NerdWallet as a writer. NerdWallet is a financial kind of comparison website in the UK, and we're really keen to get people knowledgeable and have like clarity on all their financial decisions. And financial literacy is a massive part of that for young people, obviously, but for everyone as well. I've got three main things I want to talk about today. So I want to think about what financial literacy means. What do those two words actually mean? It sounds like we've got a bit of knowledge around anyway. I also want to think about what that looks like right now for young people in the UK. And then what can I do? Where can I start? How do I improve? So let's start off. What does financial literacy actually mean? In a nutshell, it's having the knowledge and the tools to make financial decisions and plan for your financial future. So that's having product knowledge. If I talk about investments, savings, budgeting, crypto, pensions, buy now, pay later, there's so many different options, so many different products and these services, they're growing every day. Do you know about them? Are you aware that there's some things coming up? Or do you know where to get that knowledge? It's not necessarily knowing everything all at once. That's not helpful, but finding out as and when you need it is really important. I've already said about budgeting as well, and also having an awareness of short and long-term financial goals, decisions that you make now that might impact you today, in a week's time, in a month's time, a year's time, even decades time. If we talk about pensions, I'm 23. Pension seems like a really, really long way off for me, but it's still something you've got to think about now to go into your future. So in short, do you know what's going on with your money? Do you have the right tools so that you can lay foundations and make the right decisions for you financially? And I just want to ask whether you think you're in charge of your finances, because that's important too when we're talking about financial literacy. So just think, have you ever maybe gone to university, ever rented a flat or a house, maybe even bought a house? Have you taken out a loan or, saved into a pension? Any number of these things. That's a real decision. By the time you're in charge of your finances, it's almost too late. You've made that decision and it's real. There's no test run there. So you need your knowledge and you need the tools so that whenever you start making these decisions, you understand them and you understand what consequences they could have. Consequences makes it sound really bad. I don't mean it like that. But you know where that's going and what's going to happen in the future because of what you've done right then. If you don't have financial literacy, you fall into what I like to call the vicious circle of illiteracy instead. So you're going to worry about your money. You've got this fear of knowing about it, or you know, you don't even want to find out, which means you don't know the whole situation. You can't make sense of what's going on, which means you can't learn. You know, you don't want to have that knowledge or those tools. You stay in this illiterate circle, so to speak, and things can kind of spiral out of control. So if you take an example, you know, when I was practicing, I said when you get a bill on your doormat, I feel like people don't do that anymore. You get emails. When you get emailed a bill and you don't want to open it because you're like, oh, it's fine, I'll deal with it later, or it's scary. And then you get another one a week later, it's the same bill, and you're just like, oh no, now it's a thing. Now I really don't want to look at it. And it just gets, you know, it could get worse and worse and worse because you just refuse to look at it. And then by the time you've eventually opened it, it can be way worse than it was if you'd have just opened it to start with. Especially with things like bills, because the interest on them can be huge for late payments and things like that. Whereas if you'd have had the knowledge or the tools straight away, you might have opened that, sorted it, or, you know, if that was something you couldn't pay, got in contact with a debt management charity or someone to help you. So knowing your finances, knowing your options is absolutely key. And financial literacy gives you the confidence to face those problems and the tactics to kind of deal with them afterwards. So that's a little bit about what financial literacy is in my view, and we'll move on now to what the current situation is, mostly in the UK, but I think a lot of these things are applicable across Europe, really. So a little rhetorical question for you. Young people don't worry about money. True or false? I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. I think we probably all know the answer. It's false. Of course it is. Everyone worries about money. You know, young people are no exception. And I found some stats to back that up. So according to the 2021 to 2022 Young Person's Money Index, 81% of young people are concerned about their finances, and 72% of them want more financial education about them. And that's kind of reflected in that last stat. 25% of young people are teaching themselves about personal finance. So whether they feel like maybe they're not getting enough education at school or from their parents or from other providers, they want, you know, they're concerned, they have the want for knowledge and tools, and they're doing it themselves. So there really is a worry there. And I think that's always been the case. You know, we talk about the situation now, maybe our landscape's a little bit different, but, you know, even in the past, even a generation ago, there was still worry about that. If we think about in my parents' generation, maybe money maybe seemed a bit more confusing in some ways. There's lots of paperwork, so you've got your bank statements, you have to do checks. Maybe it's more difficult to kind of access your money. You have to go into a branch. I literally don't remember the last time I went into a branch or a bank. And there was a lot of cash maybe involved as well. Just want to reflect on that for a second. I don't know the last time you ever used cash or you've ever written a check. I last used cash maybe 2 weeks ago for a specific shop that doesn't take card, and I had to go out and get the cash specifically for it because I just didn't have any. And I've never written a check. I don't think I ever will. I've never had a checkbook. So, you know, we've had a lot of change even in like a generation ago to now. And that's kind of good. You know, in 2022, we have mobile banking, we have internet banking, everything's kind of there as soon as you want to look at it. I don't have to wait for a statement to see how much I've spent. It's just on my phone as soon as I open it, telling me exactly what I've spent and exactly how much coffee I've bought. And that makes things a lot easier in some ways. You know, we're a lot more informed, but it's knowing what to do with that information. You know, it's pointless if I get lots of notifications saying how much I've spent, if I don't then know, okay, maybe I'll have to cut back a bit and maybe I should think about budgeting, or, oh, actually, I've had a lot more, you know, income this month and maybe I could save some of it. How do I do that? If I have that information, but I don't know what to do, it's kind of useless. So, you know, more people can engage with their money. It's a lot more accessible now, but we still need that knowledge and those tools. So we still need that financial literacy to actually help us move forward. And that's what I want to talk about finally. So, you know, things might be different now. We might have more information. and we can improve. We can get better with financial literacy, like using all the information that we've got. And I think it's really important to note that it's for all ages. You know, we're talking about young people, and obviously it's great to set that foundation, but it's never too early and it's never too late to learn. If financial literacy, you know, if you know a bit about it already, great. If you're one of those people where you're like, I have no idea what's going on, that's fine. You know, it's not something to be embarrassed about, because taking those tiny little steps towards knowing is half the battle. And I kind of illustrated those little steps here, but it's about getting ahead. It's about just like making those small changes to get to a bigger thing in the end. So you want your knowledge, you want your tools, like I keep on saying, and you know, it's habits and making those changes in your life. They're not rocket science. It's not something huge. You just have to start. That's your first thing. Plan some goals, make a plan to get to those goals, and then like get some help as well. And we'll come on to all of those things. The main thing to remember, I think, is that it's not just going to happen. You do have to do a little bit there, but you know, every effort that you put in helps in the long run to with your financial future and with you knowing what's going on with your money. So yeah, the first thing to do is to just start. Easy, right? Maybe not, but it's about building up some knowledge, building up a way of thinking about things. You might want to learn how to budget. You might not know how to do that. You know, very simply, it's just looking at what you've got coming in, what you've got going out, and what you kind of need to spend on, what you might want to spend on, you know, little treats for yourself, and making sure that you've got enough to cover that. You then might want to think about savings. If you've got a bit extra coming in, if you want to put in a habit just to save a small amount each month, so you've got something, whether you're aiming to buy something, or whether you just want like a rainy day fund or an emergency fund, you want to make a plan for that. It's also really important, I think, to demystify finance. And that's a key part of starting, because there's a lot of learning involved when you first start. You might hear a lot of words like credit and pensions and debt and not really know what they mean, or someone has previously just warned you off them. My mom, when I was like 10, told me to never get a credit card, ever. Just fully stop. And at the time I was like, that makes sense. And now I think about it a little bit differently, and you know, I'm more knowledgeable and can say, well, it might not always be a bad thing, you know, but it's building up that knowledge and being able to kind of interrogate for yourself what the best decision for you might be. And then I've also put debt management on there as well. Obviously, a lot of this stuff I'm talking about quite positively if you want to save or you want to budget things. But, you know, financial literacy is also being able to deal with when things might not go so well. And so knowing where to turn if you get into debt, looking at what's a sensible credit option for you, knowing the kind of consequences of credit, and knowing if there's like a charity or someone like that that you can go to if you did need some help. So yeah, we just start, and then you want to set some goals. That might be you want to buy a house. You might want to move out and start renting somewhere. You might be saving up for a big purchase, you know, a new phone or something. It doesn't matter what your goals are particularly, you just have to set them and stick to them. And there's lots of ways you can do that, you know, because we're in 2022, we've got everything online, got mobile apps, maybe your banking app or something. Or you can just write it down, you know, put it on a post-it note, stick it somewhere, be reminded of it, have it visually reminded every day. You then want to make a plan to get to your goals. So again, budgeting can really help. You want to stick to that as well. You want to be honest with yourself. It's no use saying, oh yeah, it's fine. I get, you know, £2,000 a month and I pay £1,000 in rent. So I'm obviously going to be able to save the rest of the £1,000. Like, that's obviously not realistic. When you think about everything else you've got to pay for, especially with like the cost of living and prices going up. So you've got to be honest and realistic with your goals, and that's going to help you get there as well. If you plan for something huge and then you just can't stick to it because it's too big, that's no help. So you want to be as honest and realistic as possible. And then you want to get help if you need it. So you can look to different experts. You can look at talking to a financial advisor. other providers, whether that's someone like your bank or a lender who are going to give you the facts on a product, whether that's a charity, like, you know, we talked about debt management before. Mostly you just want to know where your information is coming from and knowing that it's truthful, it's accurate, it's reliable. So you can just think about, where's this information coming from? Who's telling me this? And how do I know that I can trust it? Watch out for fake news. You know, we've all seen it. And just a kind of reminder of those. So, you know, you can talk to your bank, you can talk to other providers, advisors, different websites, someone like, you know, or something like NerdWallet, where we've got a team of experts trying to give people the information they need to make those decisions, you know, so they have everything in place. And that just helps you to be in charge of your money. And that's what financial literacy is overall, you know, in a nutshell. You want to be in charge. That's my takeaway, really. It's possible. It's not scary. And you just have to start. It shouldn't all be a mystery. Money shouldn't be a mystery. And financial literacy just helps you to take charge of it. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Christina. It was very interesting to hear you. And Isabel, if you can put me back on the spotlighting, that would be fantastic. And also Christina, obviously, because I'm not done with her yet. I want to see first, are there some questions from the people who are watching? I don't see any, but maybe people are still writing. Christina, thank you so much. I was really resonating with what you said. My parents told me never to get a credit card. My parents told me, don't spend any money that you don't have, only for a house. So it's a bit in a similar line. I'm always hoping that with young people, the new generation, this is different, but it seems still to be a challenge. So if you talk to other youth workers around financial literacy, what advice do you give them when they work with young people? What should they do? Should they direct them to somebody or rather provide also information? How do you see the role of youth workers or youth information workers in this?
I think the main thing is to be honest with the young people that you're talking to. You know, as a youth worker, you're going to know this, but young people have a lot of capacity to understand big concepts. And I think the most important thing to do is to give them the information and the tools, and then not leave them to work out by themselves. Obviously, you know, they might need some support, but they're the ones that can kind of build on that information and make informed decisions for themselves. So yeah, being honest and giving them the information they need.
Okay, interesting. Maybe a second question. I was wondering, in Belgium, there was a research done, I think a month ago, about the media literacy and the use of cell phones and all the digital tools. And there they found out that young kids, youngsters, they're very good online, but not with serious things. So they're very good in the social media, in the game, in connecting. Do you have a similar experience with that? Do you see that that they have a hard time in dealing maybe with all those online tools that are created to help you to be more financially independent and to learn about finances?
I guess it kind of lends itself to where, you know, we've got a lot of games online, lots of social media. It doesn't feel real. Like I kind of mentioned in my presentation, like it feels like it's a test run, and finance isn't necessarily a test run. You know, not most of the time that's the only chance you've got. You've done it right then. So I feel like perhaps there needs to be more kind of a push to get that seriousness across. Yeah. Okay,
good. Thank you. I will see you later again in the debates, if I'm not mistaken. But thank you so much already for these insights. It was also helpful for me, as you said.
Cool, thanks so much.
For all ages, not only for young people. But thanks a lot for your contribution, and see you a little bit later.
Thanks.
Then we are moving on to our second speaker. Equally interesting, of course, Mina Meleri is responsible for advocacy and growth at JA Europe, which is the largest organization in Europe dedicated to preparing young people for employment and entrepreneurship. She has been working on EU public affairs for a number of organizations, and she is also the CEO of Jazz National Organization in Iceland. Mina, welcome, and I would just pass the word to you, and I'm very curious to what you will share with us.
Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Indeed, I'm from Junior Achievement, and I'll share my screen so that you can see my presentation. Then if you can tell me when it's coming up.
It is coming up. You just need to put it on the main screen, because now we see your whole PowerPoint. So if you just put it on the spotlighting or on the presentation mode, we would be good.
Okay, I have it on my phone. Let me do it.
It disappeared. Let's give it another shot. That they didn't figure out anything easier yet, eh? So just to press one button and we have presentations. I think now we are going there. It is, at least I see you clicking on it, but it's not yet appearing in full screen. Sometimes F5 also works on your computer to put things in full screen. Or on the top, if you go to slideshow and then start slideshow, that's a third way of putting it, because now we still see your whole PowerPoint presentation.
That's strange, because I saw it myself in the way.
Yeah, and maybe go there from the beginning on the left. Yes. Let's see if it works like this. And I see it moving now, at least. There's a black screen. Oh, and it's back to the PowerPoint presentation. Maybe you can make it as big as possible, because it did work earlier on. It's always like this with the technology. It's failing us so often. So maybe give it one more shot. And if not, just leave it in the PowerPoint, I would suggest, and show it as big as possible. Or if you can just present it as well, that would also be an option. Let's give it one more shot. And there, yeah, the slideshow. I think it's the other screen, because now we see your screen, or you should see. Yeah, that's a challenge with Zoom sometimes. If you have two screens, it flips between the two, but we're almost there. At least we already got it going. And
okay, well,
let's give it, you want to give it one more shot? And otherwise, I would suggest you just share with us what you have to share.
now?
No, it's not working out right now. Are you able to speak like this with the slides as we see them now? Or would you prefer me to take just a different initiative? We have the inspiring initiatives afterwards.
No, that's fine. Let me speak briefly. I mean,
okay, fantastic.
It's not rocket science, as Christina was saying. A very good introduction indeed. So, Junior Achievement, we are a non-profit or a charity would be in the UK. Indeed, working across Europe in the education system, so in schools, and we run different educational programs to all levels of education. And we really want to empower young people to have the skill set and mindset to thrive in building communities, in getting employment, even going into entrepreneurship. And so this is what we do. So in any European country that maybe the participants are from, there will be a national junior achievement organization that you can look up in case you're interested in knowing more what kind of programs are available in your country and where to find them. So we work really in the education systems. I see now someone is sharing. I'm trying to click it. So what we do is really hands-on immersive learning, including in the financial health, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and sustainability. It means that it's not only theoretical, knowledge, but it's really putting that knowledge into practice. So having a mini company or a mini startup during a school year, really trying out in practice what it means to make those financial decisions, in addition to the more theoretical knowledge. Globally, we reach over 12 million young people every year, and we work with 265,000 teachers. And one core component of how we deliver those programs, and it's very important for us, it's the collaboration with the world of work. So with employers, with private sector, who provides us with mentors to really accompanying the learning process of the young people. So it's being in the classroom, it's bridging that divide between education and the world of work, so that on the one hand, we make sure that the talent that comes out of the education systems into the labor market is the talent that the employers are looking for, with the right skills in a very fast-moving economy and fast-changing world. And obviously also for the young people who have a degree, that then that degree is put into a concrete benefit by getting some employment. So our focus areas, indeed, entrepreneurship, work readiness, and financial literacy. And those are not, I mean, those are intertwined, obviously. So if you have a mini company program, you will learn a lot of skills on business, business canvas and marketing plans, market research, etc., but also the teamwork, the resilience, the taking initiative, and the same with the financial part. So the company finances that go hand in hand with the personal finances that Christina was talking about earlier. So it's also indeed demystifying what it means to be an entrepreneur, to run a business, or to be a manager in a big company, what it means to take financial and business decisions. And it's very important to teach those early on to young people. And then obviously at the same time, you can be focusing, for instance, on science, technology, engineering, and maths areas. So if you're a STEM student, you can do an entrepreneurship program that teaches you the business side of things, or you can combine an entrepreneurship course with digital skills development. Even now, nowadays, the important new areas of deep tech, artificial intelligence, for instance, you can develop a business concept using artificial intelligence, and in that way put into practice all the skills that you have and develop new ones. And the same with sustainability, the green transition, how your business idea or your skills in sustainable energy, for instance, can be put into practice for the greater good. So indeed, the research obviously shows that this kind of hands-on entrepreneurship education program has really a lot of benefits for the young people. And I would say, of course, there is the part where the entrepreneurs who get the drive at school through our programs, they will go on and found businesses and become entrepreneurs. But it's also very important for reducing school dropout, for instance. And we have some research saying that that category of youth who is really at the risk of dropout, because they have difficulties with the more traditional ways of education at school. This kind of hands-on practical programs can really be the hook that keeps them at school. And it's very valuable to teach also those core financial skills at vocational education, for instance. Because if you are in a mechanical, or let's say beautician or hairdresser education path, it's important to have basic business and financial skills in case you want to set up your own company and run your own activity as a private entity later on when you graduate. So it's really important that it goes as a progression model from ABC to PhD. It can be at all levels of education and in all types of education. That financial literacy should be more integrated than it is today. So I mentioned it briefly, but so financial education, it's to support both employment but also entrepreneurial success. So when we think about financial budgeting and planning, it's indeed important for any organization, for any company that the youth would go and work at. But also, if we think about Europe and the need, which is also policymakers have recognized it, that there is more need for entrepreneurial mindset in Europe and more startup activity, more the risk-taking and acceptance of failure. It's important to also put that ambition into the minds of young people, that you can actually think about your company. You can have a business idea, you can start growing it, and you can keep that, you can have that growth mindset. So apart from running a sound business, you can also look into investing, into growing it, into really being ambition and taking your activity cross-border to the next level. And that we believe is very important also to have in school as a message to young people. So you're not just at school and then you will go and get a job for the rest of your lives. Indeed, that was another generation. Today it's a completely different world, and young people need to have the skills to navigate the labor market, or if they decide, have the confidence and the tools and the mindset at hand to set up their own company and be successful financially. So in Europe today, there is a huge room for having more financial literacy education at school. It can take different forms. In our programs, we have adapted content for different levels. So even in primary school, you can really start with the basic questions like Christina was mentioning in terms of personal finance. What is money? Where does it come from? What are the different roles in an economy, in a society? Why do we pay tax? Why do companies pay tax? How do they give back to their communities? What are the roles of employers, of employees, and so on. So from there, the awareness and the knowledge of financial decisions and management, and then going further into even the entrepreneurial activity and running your own business as a key decision taker, they are building blocks for young people's financial literacy path. So again, the work readiness, the entrepreneurship, and the financial literacy pillars, they go hand in hand, and they are intertwined. And there are many, you can look at it from different angles, but the idea is that at school and at a very young age, young people would get some exposure, and through some very hands-on business programs that can be shorter, sort of innovation camp, trying out your idea, doing quick market research, or more long-term through the whole school year in a team, setting up a business and running it for a while and making some real money, maybe failing, maybe not being able to do what your plan was. That's an equally important learning experience, because then it prepares you for similar and better decisions later on. So I'm not sure which slide you actually see on the screen, but yeah, I think I'll stop there. Just to say that we also have a micro credential called the Entrepreneurial Skills Pass, which is a way to assess and also certify the knowledge that and the skills and the competencies acquired through this program. So it's also for young people a way to prove in a more formal way on the resume that they have gone through a certain program and acquired some skills that they can then show to a potential employer, for instance. So thank you very much. Sven, I think I'll stop here and I can take some questions.
Yes, thanks a lot, Mina. Very interesting. And you saved it well with all the tech problems. Well done on that level as well. Yeah, again, like before, I resonate. I was an almost dropout in school, and indeed, what you said, these practical hands-on classes, it really helps to keep people on board. I also was thinking this whole thing of hands-on learning on how finances work. This is also something that young people learn in youth organizations by setting up projects, by working with budgets. Do you see also some collaboration here between youth work and school? And maybe do you have some examples of that where that works well?
Yeah, I mean, depending a little bit on the country, our programs are run either during school time or sometimes outside of school time. So it's indeed, I don't have concrete example, but it's completely possible that it's either the same people who are active, you know, in both organizations. Usually it's an experience over 1 year, and then you continue to be active citizen either in the economic sphere or the youth sector in general. But I think the point is really to give this feeling to young people that they are in charge, that you can do something, and especially you also mentioned it for marginalized youth, for youth with limited opportunities who are maybe from remote areas or economically disadvantaged or immigrant background or with disability. There can be a feeling that this is not for me, you know, it's not, so business is, for instance, only for business school students in the capitals. We say, no, everyone can and should have the opportunity to learn it. But it's true that the schools should offer it, or society should offer it. So that's what we try to do as an organization. We try to bring some of the experts from the banks, from the private sector to tell the students how it works. Because yeah, you can Google or try to find out on your own, but the likelihood of success is bigger if there is a mentor accompanying you, or a teacher, or a group of peers.
Exactly. And there's a lot of misinformation as well online. So at least to help guide people, like what is relevant, actual and good information. You mentioned young people from a disadvantaged background. We also have a question here from Anna Nesladek. And she asks, do you have programs to specifically address young people from disadvantaged backgrounds?
Yes, we do. We just started actually a year ago. We have an initiative called Economic Opportunities for All that we do with the support of NN Group from the Netherlands. It's actually our company program. So it's the same program that we've had for 100 years, which is the school during the school year, setting up your mini company and learning all the different steps. But we realized as well that these programs are a bit they tend to be focused in capital areas, in schools where the teachers are looking for this kind of methodology, maybe with a business mindset, a lot with some business teaching background. And it's less available in other areas, more remote or vocational schools, or in the countryside, for instance, and also with areas with concentration of immigrants. So we have, that's why it's a kind of affirmative action. We really want to make sure that we reach a certain proportion of also youth with limited opportunities. And so we have, for instance, in Greece, our colleagues are working with UNICEF to reach migrant communities specifically, because it's also very important to empower them in a new country to quickly integrate the society and economy in a meaningful way. So this is something that we are more and more conscious of, and we want to focus on in the years to come.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mina, for your insights. We will also see you back later in the debate.
Mm-hmm.
We are very much aware that for many of you, it's around lunchtime and that some of you might be craving for a snack. So we're gonna take a 5-minute break, just until 11:56 for the people who are following live. And then we will come back with some inspiring initiatives from the ERYICA network and also a short debate with the panelists, but with also some other people that you haven't seen yet. So see you again in 5 minutes.
Coming home, any place we wander to, any season we go through, I'll be fine as long as I'm with you. Heaven knows, running round the world with you. When you smile, I smile too. How I ever made it without you. Heaven knows.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you used the break to get some refreshments, maybe even got some fresh air. That's always helpful to stay focused for this second and equally interesting part of this webinar. As promised, we have for you 3 inspiring initiatives from the ERYICA network. And we will start with Candice Wood, who will present Money and Me. She is a digital content editor at Young Scot in Scotland. She has worked in youth information services for over 9 years, so lots of experience there. And she developed different digital tools across the Young Scots website and social media platforms. Candice, very welcome. I'm going to give you about 6 minutes to explain what you are doing and inspire our fantastic audience. I'll leave the floor to you, 6 minutes, and then we'll come back and have the next speaker. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Sven. Hopefully you can all see my presentation on the screen now. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're joining from. As Sven had mentioned, my name is Candice and I work at Young Scot. Young Scot is a national youth information charity for young people in Scotland aged 11 to 26. And I'm going to speak today a little bit about our Money and Me information campaign. The campaign is funded by the Money and Pension Service based in the UK. They are one of the largest financial education, information and kind of regulatory bodies for finance in the UK. We have been working on this campaign for over a year. The campaign has just ended in September, but it was co-designed directly with young people aimed at age 15 to 21. 4 weeks of themed content took place across the year on budgeting, saving, spending and tax, which, you know, tax isn't always the most attractive subject to talk to young people about. But these topics were actually suggested by a group of volunteers who continued to work on the campaign throughout the year. We disseminated this information across our website on young.scot and all of our social media channels, in particular TikTok and Instagram. And we also, throughout the campaign, were conducting evaluation surveys and panel groups with young people to continue monitoring and evaluating the performance of the campaign and to ensure that it was meeting the targets that we had set at the beginning. So here's just a little small overview of the campaign and the branding. On Young Scot's website, we have one main page, and then you can go into each individual section, which was suggested by the young people that we're working with to divide up this information in the 4 themes that I'd spoken about. So in week 1, we looked at budgeting. We've worked with a few influencers in the UK and in Scotland to create information on social media. We did a whole video series with Iona Bain, who is from the Young Money blog and one of the key partnerships that we took on during the campaign. She created some content during this first week around buy now, pay later services such as Klarna, ClearPay, and we also created budgeting tips, tools, downloadable content for young people to create their own budget. And you can also see on the screen, hopefully here as well, that in the surveys that we conducted after each week of the campaign, we were monitoring what the audience both thought of the initial kind of information and also the impact and positive actions that were taken by them having seen the information that we were providing. So over 3/4 of the respondents in the first survey said that they were actively budgeting, and 44% of young people said that this was since seeing the campaign, which is really great for the first week. In the second week, we looked at saving. We created some content around cryptocurrency and also through Young Scot services that we also provide our European Youth Association card as well. We in Scotland have access to free bus travel for young people aged under 22, which came into place in January this year. So discounts that we provide through our Young Scot card were also promoted during this time around saving money. And again, in the kind of survey at the end of this week's campaign, 2/3 of respondents had started saving money or started saving more money since seeing the campaign. The third week's focused on spending, a little bit of a cumulative term for some of the content that we're focusing on this week, because we were talking about things like credit cards, pensions, lots of planning for the future, and how young people might be spending their money right now, and on borrowing money and credit, and what those things actually are. Through our social media channels throughout the campaign, we did a lot of interactive content, especially on Instagram, where we asked the audience to suggest us questions that we could just answer in place on Instagram stories. And we also offered initiatives through our rewards and membership platform, where we could offer young people prizes or certain kind of experiences and help with vouchers and things like that for participating or engaging in the campaign. And then, as I've mentioned, the final week focused on tax. So we talked about pay slips and national insurance in the UK and how that works, and what to do if you start a new job, and if you get emergency tax, and how to navigate paying for tax as an entrepreneur and starting your own business, and lots of different kind of very technical and complex financial information that was hopefully a lot more simplified by viewing it through Young Scots campaign. And again, we got some really positive results from the survey at the end of that week. And that final survey, here's just a few of the example pieces of content on our social media in particular. The final results, we had set ourselves some SMART goals right at the beginning of the year. You can see that there are some that we haven't met and some that we've definitely exceeded, and it's definitely been a learning experience for us and how we might progress this campaign in the future. But to have a total reach of over almost 1.8 million, which is above double the goal that we had set ourselves, is really, really positive. And likewise with engagements across our website and social media channel, and some of the positive actions that young people were taking really said to us that this resource that we had created was becoming very much so extremely needed, because around this time is when the cost of living crisis, particularly in the UK, started to pick up steam, and we were seeing a lot of feedback from young people talking about how they're struggling to manage their money, and also the balance between having fun, enjoying their childhood, their young adulthood, as well as being very concerned about their future and how they're going to navigate it. In response to this, and leading off from the end of the Money and Me campaign, we developed a resource around the cost crisis, obviously focusing within our remit in Scotland, but cumulative information from kind of UK sources as well. You can see that 91% of the respondents to our final survey from Money and Me actually directly mentioned the cost of living crisis and how they were impacted by it. And there's a few quotes there which you can kind of read hopefully on the screen. But in response to this, we then created a separate resource directly related to this. Information on ways that young people can use our Young Scots services, and glossaries, information about particularly energy prices, because that is one of the biggest concerns, especially I think everyone can relate, but within the UK right now, and ways to kind of manage money, signposting back to the Money and Me resource, as well as looking after your mental health and being anxious about the future of your finances. And
fantastic. I was going to ask you to round off, but you read my mind. Thank you so much. I know it's a very, very short time to present such an interesting project with a big impact, so it seems. We have the opportunity to hear you back after the other two inspirational projects as well. For the people who are listening, it's still possible to ask your questions in the Q&A. Please mention who you want to address, or if you all three, that's also fine. And then we can hear a bit more from Candice later. Thank you so much. Really interesting stuff. Good work. And that means that we will move on to our second inspirational project speaker, and that is Rositza. She's from Finance Man, and since 2017, she works as a web and marketing manager of mladeinfo.eu platform. This platform provides young people with information and educational opportunities in order to fulfill their personal, educational, and professional potential. And as of 2022, she's also working for an NGO, Poraka Nova, if I pronounce that correctly, where you are continuing to run the platform. I will not say more, otherwise you might have nothing to say.
Thank you.
But you will have plenty of things to say, but I would also like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and to show what Finance Man is all about.
Thank you, Sven. So I will just share my presentation. Hi to all, nice to meet you. I'm here to present Finance Man, one online campaign that actually Mladi Info International NGO implemented and delivered back in 2019, but we still believe it's up to date and relevant because although this was a local campaign, so delivered only in North Macedonia, this burning question about financial literacy is all over Europe, especially to the countries in the Western Balkan. So why Mladi Info created a superhero that raised awareness about financial literacy among youth? I don't know if you see the changes in the slide. Back then, but even now still, young people in North Macedonia had a lack of knowledge about finances, how to manage personal finances, about public finances, how pension system works, how the budgeting of the country is created. Young people are becoming independent very late. So I read recently some statistics from Eurostat that in Macedonia, young people leave their parental home around 31, 32, when basically they're not longer young, according to the law in our country. Also, according to some research, they have partial knowledge about this topic and really feel the need of having more information related to the matter. And according to one survey, also the financial literacy, even among the adults in the country, is 56% of the maximum, which is significantly lower compared to the adults in the on the European level. So after the program department of Mladi Info back then in 2019 came to this info data results and surveys, they decided that Mladi Info is a huge information provider in North Macedonia. Needed to do something, although our focus back then was youth information related with education, meaning scholarships, job opportunities, etc. But they decided to apply for the project because if we visually presented the situation with the young people and finances in our country, this will be like the image, sort of confusion, doubting, uncertainty, etc. So that's why they created and designed awareness raising campaign on financial literacy among young people with focus. But then they decided also to spread, as we started to deliver the campaign, to spread it among the general public and to other media. The project was supported by Balkan Monitor, Public Finances, and ERYICA and EU program, and implemented, as I said, by Mladi Info. So when the campaign needed to be designed, there were like questions: do we do videos? How we do standard postings, infographics, some manuals, short manuals? But then they decided to make comics as a way to in an interesting more way to spread the word and information about financial literacy. So using comics as a tool, which back then we hope that will be engaging and popular among young people, and will speak on their, let's say, youth-friendly language, in order to reach out to a wide range of youngsters and boost their financial literacy. That's why they, the program department decided to do a comic series and to be focused on strong online campaign. We target youth, media, but as well older people, basically the parents who we believe that are an important chain in the educational process, which is related to the finances. The campaign also and the comics were translated on, was originally created on Macedonia, but then translated on Albanian. There were also printed editions of the comics, and they were available in the Youth Info Center in the Skopje, in one of the municipalities in Skopje, the capital of Macedonia. And whenever opportunity the team had, they were also presented to stakeholder meetings, to mayors in the municipalities and other NGOs and colleagues. So the comic episodes were 5 episodes basically, and the topics that were in that episodes were inflation and the role of the central bank in North Macedonia, how the pension system works, the budget of the republic, payment cards, so banking system, and public procurement. We delivered mostly on the website, on the social media channels of Mladi Info, but as well we had strong media supporting on this. So few TV stations, web portals, radio stations also published or made announcement about this campaign. So the results from the local campaign were plus 80K people reached through social media, around 4,500 engaged with the content that was published. It was also published on a couple of Facebook groups that we have, that were locally relevant Facebook groups with youngsters, and people 4,000 clicked on the photo and comics, basically read the comics. Series, 7 media outlets published the info related to the campaign, and additionally we have sent direct emails to plus 30 organizations, student organization and association in the country, where we presented the comic series. So as a conclusion, we really thought back at time and now even that the financial literacy and financial capability of the young people is very important, first for their self-development, for their financial independence and autonomy, and overall for their better quality of life. So if we need to say in some short conclusion, is that we really wanted somehow to help young people how to learn to manage more effectively their money, to know more about the financial systems in the country, and in order to be financially stable, build assets and achieve their personal goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosita. Very interesting as well. I love the approach of cartoons. As a Belgian, we claim to be the nations of cartoons. I can only applaud this. Super interesting. Thanks a lot. And that means we move to our third and last inspiring initiative, which is called Money on Your Mind. And it will be Sinead Byrne who will present this initiative. She's the head of engagement with Sponout, if I pronounce that correctly.
Yeah.
If not, you will correct me later, which is based in Ireland. She has worked with this organization for 2.5 years on youth participation and works to ensure that young people's voices are heard at all levels of the organization. I'll pass the floor gladly to you, and I'm very curious to see what Money on My Mind will be after your short presentation.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Sven. Delighted to be here. It's nice to talk to everybody. I'm trying to get my slides up at the minute, but they are not cooperating particularly well, even though it worked fine earlier. So if you can give me a second, I will do my best to get them back. If not, I can just speak myself anyway. The slides are more to keep me on track, so I don't go off on a tangent speaking about other things. I might actually just speak because it's gonna take too much time, I think, to try to get them back. So basically, yeah. So I work with. Oh, brilliant! Thank you. Thanks, Angelina. So I work with Sponout. I'm the head of engagement with Sponout, as Sven mentioned. And my main role is kind of making sure that we have youth participation and young voices at all levels of the organisation. And our specific target audience is 16 to 25-year-olds based in Ireland. So last year we ran this campaign called Money on Your Mind. It was a partnership with the Irish League of Credit Unions, which are a non-profit financial institution. So essentially they came to us and they wanted to figure out what young people wanted in terms of financial institutions. They felt that credit unions were always seen as like an older person's financial institution. And essentially they wanted to figure out what information young people needed in terms of their financial well-being, financial literacy, and what they could do to encourage young people to take care of their finances. So it was a good partnership for us in the sense that we really wanted to do something around financial well-being anyway. So we tried to figure out what would benefit both partners and also young people who would receive the information. So as a starting point, what we did was we created a survey on financial well-being and financial literacy. And we specifically targeted students, so college students who were either returning to college or who were starting college for the first time. So it was kind of mainly 18 to 22-year-olds that responded to the survey. And this gave us a good insight into what information these young people needed in terms of their finances, what their concerns were, and what information we could potentially provide to meet those information needs. So you'll see there from some of the survey findings, these are some of the key findings that we had. 88% of those young people said that they stress about money sometimes or all of the time, which is a really high number. And I know someone mentioned in their presentation earlier, it was 81% in another piece of research. So really quite high and similar to our own findings. We also found that between those young people, that 46% of them felt that they were like fairly comfortable with their finances each month, while 40% struggled to afford like basic living expenses. So that be that like food, travel, accommodation. So really essential things for a living, I suppose, which is quite worrying that 40% struggle with that. And then when it came to areas that students wanted to learn more about, and this is actually quite interesting because I don't think I would have put how to invest as the top one, but how to invest was 73% wanted to learn more about that, how to manage their money better, mortgages, and you'll see the other options there as well. And then finally, that 71% said they would go to friends or family to learn more about finance, followed by news websites and social media, which again, I think is interesting and maybe points to the fact that young people want to go to a really trusted source. So somebody they know to find information about their finances. So maybe they're less likely to go online straight away because they want to make sure that it's an information source that they trust. So based on these findings, we created 5 pieces of content. So that was 5 fact sheets. So the first one, what to do if you're worried about money, because obviously financial stress was a top concern for those young people who responded to the survey. How to create a budget, saving money as a student, how to start investing, and how to get a loan. So these articles were created in direct response to those information needs from the survey participants. And we also had one voices piece, which was written by one of our young volunteers. And he spoke about how he managed the financial stress of losing a job offer. So this was really important to us that we had, you know, a youth voice aspect to it, because given that lived experience, I guess, is relatable for other young people as well. So it was great to kind of have that mix of both fact sheets and voices pieces. If you want to go on to the next slide, Angelina. Thank you. So overall, the campaign ran over the period of a week. So it was actually quite short in terms of how much money we put into the campaign, and we did like paid ads and sponsored ads on our social media accounts. So overall, we reached just over 65,000 young people on Facebook and Instagram. We had almost 800 people interact with the content. That was through the specific posts that we had on, let's say, Instagram or Facebook, saying like, you know, how to get a loan and a little bit of information from the article. And then we included the link to the full article in our bio. And we also had almost 3,000 people interact with our content in relation to our youth information chat. So this was another aspect of the campaign. So along with the articles, on our Spun Out website, we also run a youth information chat service. So that is available on our website from Monday to Friday. And it's serviced by youth information workers. So essentially young people can go online, go onto our website, and they can ask any specific questions that they might have about money. So we tracked that over the period of the campaign to see how many questions we were getting around finances. So I think that might be on the next slide. So I think we had about 35 conversations over the week with young people on specific finance questions. And the articles during that week period were read just over 1,000 times. So that was young people who clicked directly into an article and hopefully got some important information. And maybe those who didn't find the information that they want, then were able to move on to our youth information chat service. And then just the final slide is to give an idea of some of the other content that we have in relation to finances that we've done more recently. So obviously the cost of living crisis is a huge thing for young people. So we attended one of the protest in Dublin on the cost of living, and we spoke to some students. So we did a vox pop, and we have that on TikTok and Instagram Reels. And we've also created an article on the cost of living and what that means, because the phrase is thrown around a lot at the minute, but it's not always maybe clear to young people what that means. I know my time is almost up, but yeah, I suppose it's just a topic that we think is really important for young people, and as much as we can provide the information in different formats, we're finding that is working really well for us. So the more content we can have in like shorter video clips seems to be the most engaging way to provide that information.
Thank you so much. Again, I know it's a very short time. The idea is rather to inspire people so they can contact you after as well and learn from all the more intricate details and the things you've learned rolling out these three wonderful projects. I'm looking at my Q&A board to see if there are any questions, but for now I don't see any. I do have some question, and maybe Candice, I was very interested, and I think also it was a little bit in the end as well with Shanit's presentation. You talked about this advice around cryptocurrencies. They are quite, you know, complex, volatile financial products. What kind of information do you give to young people? Because this is rather complex, right? Is it rather watch out with this, don't do it, or it's a good investment, go for it? How do you approach this?
Definitely complex. You know, as a team, we also were learning a lot about what it was and how it works ourselves. But I think the key thing for us was that the topics that were being suggested to us by young people, like around cryptocurrency, were about how trustworthy of an investment it is. And investments, I don't think that many young people might have thought of them when I myself was, you know, in school, age 15, 16. But now, because financial, like the economy is so different, that these are things that young people are seeing influencers talk about online, and you know, Bitcoin having such a huge growth over the last kind of decade. A lot of young people are very interested and want to try out these things. And our position is never to say, don't do something or definitely do something, unless, of course, like it's within the confines of the law. But we want to be able to give young people completely unbiased, very trustworthy information about what the risks are and be very honest about that, but also what some of the positives might be, and be realistic about how it might not be for everyone. It might not suit everyone's individual financial kind of situation, but it may be something that others are interested in. And I think for us, you know, we didn't do a huge amount on it, but we did some content that was particularly well received on TikTok, which is where we see a lot of cryptocurrency content as well. And these kind of complex issues were being certainly just explained in a very simple way to young people, just giving the basic facts and allowing them to make their own informed decision on whether or not it's for them or not, because we can't tell them not to do it, but we can definitely tell them what risks might be involved to their finances.
Cool, interesting. Thanks a lot. I was also wondering, and maybe this is also something for Rositza or for Sinead. There was this question about investing and how do I spend my money and how do I manage my money? Is there also something to do about how to earn money and in what possible ways? Because that's also part of financial literacy. Is there some information about that out there as well?
In this specific campaign, no. But as an information provider, yes, we back then also worked on job opportunities, providing information about job opportunities, internship opportunities. Also, we were also holding some trainings, not directly connected with the financial literacy, but building digital skills to young people, building the entrepreneurial skills, and we had projects for social entrepreneurship. So we work on that area too, but specifically in this campaign, we didn't include that because we wanted to be more directed towards the first how the financial system works in the country, and then about something about the personal finances. So, but in other projects, yes, we provided that information or implemented projects or trainings related to that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I was curious because I hear a lot of colleagues who also have companies that some young people come in with maybe also not or with different expectations on how it will be making money, how much it will be, how much the government also deducts from that. And when we see the difference between the gross and the net, so it's a concern that I see a lot of young people have as well. But thanks a lot for providing some light on that. I check again my question board. I don't see any more Q&A questions for now. So let's move on to the last part of our interesting webinar. I'm also learning some new things. And I also have some young people around me with these kind of questions. So I have better answers for them now, or at least I can direct them to different people. Our last part is a small debate, about 25 minutes, and I would like to invite Mina, Christina, and Candice to put your camera back on, and I can ask my colleague to spotlight everybody. So it will be in two parts. I first have a question for all three of you, which you can all answer, and then I have some specific individual questions for you as presenters. We don't have a lot of time, so try and keep it short, high level, and to the point. So my question to all of you is, you mentioned before that financial literacy is in fact for all ages. It's not just for young people. But are there some differences when we give financial literacy information to younger people or older older people? What would be the difference according to you? And maybe we can start with Mina.
Yes, thanks a lot. It's a very interesting question. I think definitely on the content and delivery methods, they have to be adapted to the age of the person. So if we think about school-aged kid and all the way to the teenage years and then to a young adult, the persons will have actually at the very beginning as a child almost no experience with any kind of financial decisions, whereas adults by definition have already bought something or had some income and so on. So I think that's a key difference. And it was mentioned also the example of the cartoons. I think it has to be interesting and relevant for the youth, and also where the youth is. So today, a lot in the digital space, social media, using gamification types of learning materials and not just textbook and brochures.
Okay, thank you. Christina, do you also want to shed some light on this? How do you approach this differently with young people and maybe older people like me?
Yeah, sure. I think information-wise, we can tell them similar things. It's about whether you're setting foundations if you're a young person versus if you're maybe building on them as an older person, but you're still maybe thinking long-term. I think it's important not to discount like pensions or deposits or something like that for a young person, because it feels like it's really far off in the future because, you know, compound interest, things like that. If you don't do them now, you don't have like the foundation that you can then build on later on. Also, I think young people maybe are more vulnerable to different scams to older people, just in terms of like the different things they come across. They might be more influenced by like social media and like making sure that the influencer or whoever that's promoting them a product is legitimate. Whereas like for an older person, maybe that's still going to be more kind of letters, texts, emails. Yeah, so kind of adapting to the ways different people work.
Okay, Candice, you are the last one. Is there some other attention points that we need to keep in mind?
I think Mina and Christina have both covered it pretty well, exactly what I would say. Ultimately, young people and older generations have different responsibilities, and even within a group of young people, they might have different financial situations at home or independently. So as Christina had mentioned, the information can be pretty similar, but it's about the setting and about how you deliver that to them and make it relevant and engaging to them. Because ultimately, I think there's been a lot of controversy in the UK of certain people have made certain comments in the media around cutting back on luxuries and about entertainment and things that young people will often enjoy, and criticize young people a bit because of their financial management. And I think that's quite harmful behavior. And what we try to do is ensure that young people have a good balance, that managing money is very important, but it's okay to also enjoy the money that you do have and be realistic about what you can and can't spend.
Okay, thank you all three. I hear the importance of basic information. The foundations need to be laid in the beginning, while some adults, I can tell you, my mother is also lacking the basics, and she's not young anymore. Adapt it to the language of young people, but also meet them where they are. So provide the information where young people are looking for information. The info on itself might be similar, I hear, but it's mostly how you bring it. And also to raise a bit of awareness about these potential scams that are flying around online and that maybe are hard to verify for young people. Good, thanks a lot for these insights. Mina, you are working a lot with schools. From your perspective, what are the main areas where young people need more support in? What are the things that maybe are less known or are more tricky for them?
Well, it's really a broad age group, ABC to PhD. So the idea is really to, during the school years, acquire gradually knowledge and skills and attitudes and behaviors to make sound financial decisions and later on achieve financial well-being. And then possibly also the kind of financial success or what we talked about, entrepreneurship and careers. But it's true that the sort of focus areas that we see also from our partners' perspective. So for instance, one is women in finance and women's and young girls' interest and attention to financial matters is something that stays a priority. So making sure that that we get a generation of women who are financially independent, who are interested also in taking care of their personal finances and growing their independence from that point of view. And that starts very early on. So it's a bit similar to the gender focus in STEM education, for instance. So there are some, I would say the gender element is there. that we must make sure that young girls are also getting all the encouragement and all the knowledge and the tool set that they need to later on be financially independent women. And why not go into finance careers or entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
And then also the focus on the disadvantaged communities more broadly. So I would say it's really the sort of trainings and what you can learn at school, but also maybe more broadly the awareness. So you know, there's things like Global Money Week, which are very big campaigns, also on social media, and really to raise awareness. So I think there are also different levels of information. The first one can be just really awareness raising, and then once you kind of get people more interested, then they can learn more, perhaps online by themselves, some webinars or courses, or then through some associations or their school.
Yeah. Okay. What would be a good age to start with it? Is it at the moment people can start counting, or do you wait still a little bit longer? Is there some specific skills that one needs to have before being able to start with financial literacy?
Well, we say that, yeah, school age is a good age to start. So we have a program called Our Community, and it's as I mentioned earlier, really the roles in the economy and starting to understand the different relationships, and but really adapted to the child's age. So more by playing and role play and so on, and then taking it gradually to more advanced sort of own initiative. And running your own idea from that business point of view. So yeah, school age.
It's 6. Is that what you mean? Like in
6,
Belgium,
7, yeah.
6, 7. Okay. Yeah. So really, right at the start, when they start to learn how to count, you can already start bringing this in.
I mean, it's also parents should, you know, tell their kids where money comes from. It's not just that, you know, they can point at a toy and you'll buy it. It's important to understand that there is income, there are expenses, and then there's a part that is saved, a part that is paid to necessary expenses, and then there might be a part that is kind of for leisure or so. So it's important at home and at school and everywhere in the society from as early as possible, really.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Mina. Christina, you are writing a lot about this topic, right? So we have lots of people here who also work with young people. If they write about financial education, financial literacy, what should we pay attention to so that it becomes child and youth friendly? Do you have some tips and tricks for us?
Yeah, I think it's important to try and explain what can be quite complex in simple language. There's normally a way around it. I think that's something that we champion at NerdWallet, and it's something that I'm definitely well aware of, because I'm, you know, starting out myself. You know, I'm a young person, and I think if I can't understand what I'm reading or writing, no one else is going to be able to do it, especially for some quite new topics that that I write on. If I don't understand what I've written, no one else has a chance. So yeah, trying to make it not scary, trying to simplify, you know, just put it in basic words, and making sure that it's in language that everyone can understand.
Okay. Yeah, so not scary words, a language. And I think indeed what you mentioned is show it to a young person or to several young people before you produce it, and see, okay, is this all clear? Which words maybe are not understood, so you can adapt as you go along. What are the big information gaps in young people when it comes to financial literacy? If you have to name, like, you know, the 3 things young people tend not to know that is really crucial, what should that be?
That's hard. I think anecdotally, just from people I know, like budgeting can be quite difficult if you've moved away from home for the first time, or you've moved to uni. And, you know, we have in the UK student loans, and if you suddenly get quite a lot of cash and you don't know how to budget it, then suddenly you could not have all that cash, and you've still got to pay for shopping, and you've got to pay for your rent. So I think budgeting's a big thing. Also adapting to just a changing financial landscape. There's so many new things that we, I didn't have even 5 years ago. We're talking like buy now, pay later, I think is a massive thing at the moment where people may not understand all the consequences of that when it comes up as an option to pay, like at the checkout online. So yeah, adapting to like a changing landscape. And also I've mentioned before about pensions and things like that. I think young people maybe don't have all of the knowledge about that, or just think it's not really worth thinking about right now, but actually that's something that's important all the way through your life.
Yeah, yeah, good. So what I take from here, the context is changing. Young people should learn about the changing context. That also means that the information shouldn't be static, right? That there should be, I don't know, maybe on a website or something where the information can be easily adapted, as also regulations and systems change. Do you have some advice on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think making sure that, if you're a provider, making sure that your information's up to date. If you're a young person, checking the website you're looking at, when was it published? When was it last updated? Have they got sources that they've used? Have they fact checked their article? Just so that you know that what you're getting is the information that's actually true at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Then we move to Candice, last but not least in this little round of specific questions. So if we would talk with youth information centers, I'm sure many of them are here now. What approach should you recommend them when talking about this topic of financial literacy? How deep should they go? And maybe what skills and partnerships should they have to address this topic? Because I can imagine they don't necessarily have all the information in-house. Where can they kind of guide people to different sources?
I think first and foremost, speak to young people. They are the experts in their own financial situations and experiences, and they know best about the information that they need or want, or might not be aware of, and where their gaps in knowledge are. Working with young people to understand that is crucial, because it's not just about providing information as part of kind of Young Scot services. It's also opportunities, especially within the current financial climate, that we are encouraging young people to save as much money as we can. And we're seeing a lot of these hacks and things happening online on how you can cut back and you can make some savings in little places, and actually being very honest and transparent about that not being okay, and being honest. Young people appreciate honesty and organizations who will tell the truth, and be very kind of critical of the fact that it's maybe not something that we should be having to do, and sacrifices that we should be having to make. But if we can help in any way, these are the ways that our organization can provide support. So when we're talking about kind of partnerships, young people are definitely number one. But, in certain places, you might be lucky to receive support from your local government or from other organizations. We've been working with a lot of other kind of financial, regulatory bodies, organizations who have the expertise in certain specific, very complex areas of finance that we're trying to simplify, as the others have said, for young people's purposes. But equally, in terms of the depth of the information, that has to be guided by young people, because they will ultimately tell you how much they need to know, and get that possibly from you, and maybe have to look somewhere else for other kinds of information that's more specific to their situation. But having a basic knowledge and understanding of certain issues can lead to them being more engaged with you and being more interested in suggesting more topics to cover, and more information that would be more relevant to other young people as well. And that's an ongoing process, because as we've all kind of said, everything keeps changing. So it's important to keep on top of what the newest, most accurate information is.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking again to my Q&A board, but I don't see anything appearing. Means you are very complete maybe in what you are sharing. Dear audience, feel free to still put your questions there. We still have a few minutes to talk with our wonderful panelists. So Candice, maybe one question that I was wondering about, what if a young person who's maybe in financial trouble has some debt, comes to a youth information center? How would you deal with this kind of situation? So really an acute problem with somebody who's in a or who has a lot of problems currently.
So Young Scot doesn't have like an open centre where young people can go, but Scotland is divided into kind of 32 different regions. So each of the regional areas we work with directly and have specific services within their local areas that we can, depending on where the young people have contacted us from, signpost them to those services. And equally, we get a lot of inquiries, especially when we're promoting the campaign during this time. And young people are giving us, are telling us like very quite heartbreaking stories about the situations that they're in. And unfortunately, we can't do a huge amount ourselves, but we can certainly signpost them to appropriate services that we have available in Scotland that we know and that we work with a lot in these kinds of scenarios. So I would say that having a really robust directory of contacts that you can ensure can be provided to young people if they do approach you with these kinds of concerns is really important.
Okay, Mina, maybe linking with this, you work with schools where in most countries this is a government funded system. What do you expect from the government in terms of support in these kind of things? What can policymakers do to support this process?
Actually, a lot, because in Europe, as you say, education is the job of the state, and it's been traditionally very much disconnected or protected from the private sector. And actually what we realized or we've experienced is some resistance actually from schools to open the classroom to experts from the financial sector, for instance. It's oftentimes in Europe seen as wanting to influence or sell something to the young audiences. So what policymakers can do is really create the right framework to also open up the school systems, these kinds of entrepreneurial and financial literacy programs, because clearly there is a need, and it can even be seen as a way to modernize education systems. So instead of teaching subjects in silos in a traditional way, the new way is more interactive, more where the teacher is actually accompanying the students who discover by themselves, together with experts from the world of work. So I think the role models are important for young people, whether it's a woman who can tell her story, whether it's an entrepreneur. I mean, even financial hardship, I think we regularly hear, we read on media stories from someone who started from difficult position, from nothing, and then built something. So that can be very inspiring to young people, and it's important to connect them to different kinds of experts. Also, just the fact that a bank can be seen as a scary institution, but in fact, it's humans who work there. So if they need someone from a bank who can indeed explain how can you get a loan for your apartment or some other purpose, that can also take away some of the anxiety linked to these financial questions.
Hey, thank you. Christina, I still had a question for you. I was wondering, you said, let's get young people involved. They can check if the language is clear, if it's understandable. But how do you go about that? Do you mainly do surveys, or do you have some focus groups? Do you kind of grab people off the streets and make them read your texts? How do you approach this? How do you actually get this information on what is clear for young people besides your own experience?
Yeah, I was going to say the first thing is I am the youngest person on our team, so I tend to be the young person in residence, as it were. So making sure that I can understand it is quite useful. I think, yeah, focus groups definitely are a good way to get people more involved, and surveys as well, like just making sure that people can voice their opinion and kind of have an impact. I think it was Sinead talking about the youth voices, making sure that that was like part and parcel of the delivery. And I think that's super important.
Okay. I have one last question for the three of you, basically. So we've talked about youth information centers, we've talked about schools, we've talked about governments. We talked about young people, obviously. We haven't talked so much about parents. And often this is also a tricky situation when the parents don't have the information. It doesn't also go through to the young people. So is there anything being done currently, to your knowledge, in your organizations to support also financial literacy for the parents so they can pass it on to young people? Or if parents have questions, can they also come to you with that? And maybe we can start with Candice.
Yeah, certainly. I think, you know, in the past, we've developed toolkits for not just directed at parents and guardians, but also information for young people about how to speak to their parents about these topics across a wide variety of our campaigns. So creating that information, encouraging the conversation to be happening at home is really important. And likewise, we don't necessarily say that parents can come to us to ask questions, but we do get those questions anyway, and we're happy to provide the same information that we would to any young person asking the same thing. So it's really important that we have that relationship with you know, young people's carers and guardians and parents, because we understand that a lot of the time, you know, and this is quite like a grand assumption in some ways, but most of the time young people that are looking at our information will be living at home with you know, adults who look after the main finances of the home. So in those situations, a lot of the time, these are the kinds of questions that we might experience. So it's not so much about providing the information directly to parents all the time, but it's facilitating conversation and allowing young people to be empowered to raise the questions with their parents and to have the conversation.
Okay, I see some nodding with the other speakers, so seems to make sense. Mina, do you have some insights on that, some thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's been, parents have been recognized as a key stakeholder group in kind of surrounding young people, also in our work. And I think there could be done more indeed in terms of awareness raising. I mean, in our field of work, again, entrepreneurship education, it's not typically something that parents know a lot about. They might think it's only about pushing young people to go into risky startup founding business instead of a real job with income. So we want to raise awareness around what is entrepreneurship education. It's really about the mindset and about transversal skills and so on. The parents, I would say, they follow the programs that the youth does, but in a kind of spectator mode. So I suppose they know about us. Also, we would not directly very often interact with them, but they give authorizations for them for the youth to travel to our competitions, to the events, to the presentations, and so on. So, so there is a kind, and I think we could do more indeed. And as for technology, I think for some of these new financial spaces that were mentioned, it's actually the youth who teaches the parents, who show them, oh, look at my mobile phone. I can now, with my fingerprint, order something and yeah, pay later, or order from your account or something like that. So it's the same with technology education, that it's sometimes the youth is even ahead with new developments.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I was just thinking, when I became an entrepreneur, my mother was very concerned because we have no entrepreneurs in the family. And she said, you know, Sven, if you need some money for food, just let me know, which she never said before when I had a proper job. So I think there is indeed, maybe there the young people can teach their parents who don't have experience with entrepreneurship. Christina, do you have something to add to that?
I would definitely agree with what Mina was saying about young people sometimes teaching their parents. I have definitely done the "did you know I can pay with my phone now" thing to my mum, and she was amazed. More kind of NerdWallet way, I think we tend to try and make everything accessible to everyone, that because they're articles that everyone can freely kind of read. So we want to make sure that parents have knowledge of stuff and maybe they can then tell their children about it, or vice versa. So we're really trying to do the life cycle of the all your financial decisions, whether that's a kid trying to save for the first time or a parent trying to teach their child how to like rent or buy a house.
Okay, maybe that would be an interesting next campaign, what to teach your parents about financial literacy, as we are getting ahead, or young people are getting ahead sometimes of their parents. I see that it's 5 to 1. That means we are ending this webinar very soon. From my side, I would really like to thank all the speakers for their very interesting and engaged contributions. I enjoyed a lot speaking with you, and I'm sure that the people who were listening also got a lot out of this. This video, this conversation will be kept for posterity in the online space, on the website probably of ERYICA, but also on the Facebook page where we have been live streamed. After this webinar, before you close, you will get a pop-up questionnaire automatically where you can give some feedback about what has happened here. Did you enjoy it? Was it useful? Was it well done? Anything we can use to learn and improve these kind of formats. And that's it for me. Not for you though, because I still would like to give the word to Angelina Pereira from ERYICA. She is the person behind this webinar, guiding me, steering me, sending me all those interesting questions. And so I think it's only appropriate if I give the last word to her. Angelina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sven, and good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Angelina Pereira, and I'm a Member Services Coordinator in ERYICA. So yeah, Sven mentioned I was organizing and trying to invite all these amazing people, and also invite you, the participants, to join the event. And on behalf of ERYICA, I would like to thank all the participants for being here with us today. And all the speakers, of course, for giving us lots of food for thought and inspiration and visuality, for a wonderful job done for hosting the event. And of course, the Council of Europe for our partnership and having this webinar possible. So just for a formality, or rather a technical thing, the presentations will be shared with you via follow-up email. So just in case you're wondering, somewhere closer to the end of the week. And I would also like to take this opportunity to let you know that we are having one more webinar in the framework of our partnership with Council of Europe, and it will be about mental health this time, which is another very important topic. So you can save the date, and of course you can find information closer to November on one of our social media channels where we usually post this kind of things as well. Thank you again, and hope to see you the next webinar, and have a nice day.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.